There it is. Okay, welcome everyone. We've got quite the waiting room today. Take a little bit of time to process folks through. Thanks for everyone for joining. Just a heads up, I will be kicking out automated note takers. This meeting is being recorded and it will be available later on the NSGIC knowledge base. So if you want to go back and review the transcript or check out the meeting, it will be publicly available. I'm Jordan Regine. I'm the NSGIC PDEP for the Nation Program Manager, and you have found yourself in the PDEP for the Nation interest group meeting. Really excited for this one. We've got a really nice presentation teed up talking about how the USGS 3D elevation program has really set the stage for the future of LiDAR acquisition and distribution. I'm going to give a few more minutes for folks to filter on in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, and Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind managing the waiting room at this point, that would be awesome. All right, cool. Well, we're a little past the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and mosey on through the intro here. So welcome. As I mentioned, this is the NSGIC PDEP for the Nation interest group meeting. It is a public meeting hosted by 3D Elevation for the Nation. It's a collaborative agreement or cooperative agreement between the National State Geospatial Information Council and the USGS 3D Elevation Program to help coordinate LiDAR acquisition and distribution activities between federal agencies and state governments so that we can really put to work and maximize the value of this incredible public asset that is high resolution LiDAR-derived elevation data. Our agenda today, we always like to start with USGS update. We'll hear from the 3D elevation program team. Got some really exciting updates today. So excited to hear from them. And then I'll dive into what's going on with PDEP for the Nation. I always love to make a little space for community updates specific to your work with 3D elevation product coming out of USGS. Got a couple of reminders about upcoming events, and activities, and webinars, and then we'll dive into today's presentation with the NUVIEW team on how the USGS 3D elevation program has really set the stage for making possible their vision, acquisition, and distribution. All right. So with that, Stu, I think I saw you pop into the room. You are ready and able. I'd love to hand off and hear what's going on the USGS side of things. Okay. Stu, I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm not sure if he's coming through for anyone. Not yet. Can anyone else hear Sue? Is it just on my end?
Not yet.
Great, thank you, Jacob. Just by way of introduction, because it looks like we have quite a few new folks. Sue Buto is the acting 3D elevation program acquisition lead. She's with the USGS, and we're excited to have her back on the 3D elevation side. She's been managing 3D HP for the last couple of years. So, Sue, want to give it a test? To fill up some space, I'll describe what we're looking at here and give Sue a little time to maybe pop out and rejoin. Here's a latest 3D elevation program FY25 partnerships map. Really excited to see this map filling in with this dark green here, indicating projects and 3D data that is available or in progress. And you can see the FY25 partnerships that are planned in that striped light green, and then FY25 partnerships in progress in the light green. Really excited to see these projects moving forward. Hopefully Sue can add a little more commentary
Hey Jordan, I don't hear Sue, but this is Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, glad to cover the second one there. And if Sue comes on, she could add any more context to the graphic that you're seeing there. But basically, it's as you described, it represents coverage, including the FY25 DCA partnerships. So it's great to see us getting a little bit closer towards completing baseline coverage for those remaining areas, and also representing repeat coverage for several of the areas as well. As far as the second bullet goes, there is a new notice. I just saw it today on the USGS DCA website, and that is the announcement of the FY26 data collaboration announcement. There will be a webinar on August 6th, 1 o'clock Eastern. So those of you familiar with this know that this is something that the 3DEP team does annually. The webinar is intended to educate anyone who'd like to learn more about the DCA process, the timeline, the application materials, that sort of thing. It's usually about an hour or so, an hour to an hour and a half. There will be an opportunity to ask questions on that webinar, and I believe Sue Buto will be the one leading it. And again, the webinar is August 6th. The DCA itself is also planned to open on August 6th if planning goes as scheduled. So if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We can follow up with you. Don't know if Sue has made it on, but that's the update from our side.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. And Sue, are we able to make it back on and to speak to this first bullet?
I was. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Zoom it just never works for me properly. And thank you, Chris, for extemporaneously saving me on that one. I much appreciated.
Sure.
The first bullet, yeah, we finally have managed to get our DCA project selections for this fiscal year up and on our DCA portal. So if you go to that link, you should see the list of DCA selections for this fiscal year. They're the ones that are well, not all of them, but most of them outlined it in the bright green. But you can take a look at those, and they're for both 3DEP and 3DHP for those who are interested.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue and Chris. If anyone has questions for Sue and Chris, feel free to drop them in the chat. Or go ahead and raise your hand. I'd love to address as many as possible. If you have any questions about the DCA, FY25 awards, or what's coming up in FY26, now's an opportunity. All right, awesome. Thank you, Sue and Chris. Really appreciate this update. It's exciting to see these projects moving forward and having additional clarity there that FY26 DCA is primed and ready to go starting August 6th. On the NSGIC side of things, we are focusing on 3 key initiatives to help support state activity and align it with USGS activity. Always top of mind is securing sustainable funding, where we do that by promoting the value of 3DEP throughout the economy. This is reflected use cases on the NSGIC website, which I will drop a link into the chat here for anyone who's interested to check out the 3DEP for the Nation Information Hub. We highlight state activities around 3DEP acquisition and why elevation is important in those states. New Jersey was just published, so check that out. Let me know what you think. If any state representatives are on the line and you would like your state to be featured next, go ahead and reach out to me. I'd love to schedule some time with you. And then it's all about derivative products. Really, the point cloud is just the start. So how do we share and produce data that we can implement and put to work? So highlighting those use cases and really creating a place where people can collaborate and share them on the 3DEP Nation Info Hub is what we are up to. We just updated the state and regional 3D elevation activities page with a web map incorporating each state's elevation grade from the geospatial maturity assessment over the last, I think, 6 years at this point. So check that out. You can see how states have progressed from 2019 up to 2023. And then soon we'll be adding in the 2025 data to really give a full picture and help states collaborate on information sharing and understanding how they can improve their programs. 3D HP coordination, waiting on a little bit more clarity here, but this is a huge one, updating that national hydrography data set using elevation derived tools is really top of mind for a lot of states. So looking to really enhance the collaboration and coordination there. And that's what we're up to on the 3D for the nation side of things with NSGIC. Happy to take any questions anyone has. And if you do have a chance to check out the 3D for the nation info hub, have any feedback or comments, I would love to hear them. All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone. Always want to make space for community updates. Anyone who's doing specific work with 3D elevation data, maybe integrating it into products or some problem that you solve or challenge that you're having, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to talk and leverage the group to get those questions asked or answered. Any sort of questions you have. Anyone have anything to share with the group? Right, I love it. This is great. I mean, there's a lot of excitement for our marquee presentation today, which I'm also excited for. So just want to close out with some reminders. On August 6th, that USGS 3D NCM public informational webinar will be taking place on the FY26 PA. So check that out through the 3D website on the USGS. We have a state team meeting coming up. Vermont is going to be presenting on their work, moving their data to cloud optimized geotips. A lot of excitement around the state teams around that. And then we have a few intergroup meetings coming up in August and September with NSGIC business partners and critical partners for the acquisition and distribution of 3D data, Sanborn and Dewberry. We're going to be talking about how can we really maximize the use of that data, and then what really goes into it. LiDAR acquisition is an outdoor sport, and there are a lot of challenges associated with that. And then I'm sure a lot of us are excited to see each other in person at the NSGIC annual conference coming up in September. If you haven't registered for that, please do so. We would love to see you there. We'll have a 3D NCM breakout breakfast Monday, the 15th, and there's going to be a 3D informational session to be determined. I got to submit an abstract for that. But we'll be highlighting a use case or a case study from Tennessee on how you can build relationships and really bring home that recurring funding by really making the case and finding the right folks who are using this data to ensure that we can continue to collect it and make it the most high definition and relevant possible. All right, well, we've come to it, and I'm super excited to have the team from NUVIEW here today. We have Clint Groman, the founder and CEO, Christian Damscher, the chief engineer, and Jacob Thiel, the account executive. We're going to be talking about how the USGS 3D program has made possible their vision, acquisition, and distribution strategies so that we can move into the next generation of LiDAR acquisition and leverage this national asset that USGS has been instrumental to acquiring. With that, I'll go ahead and stop my presentation. And Jacob, if you want to take over, go ahead.
Thanks, Jordan. I will hand it over to Clint, and I will begin sharing my screen.
Thank you, everyone, for the invitation to come to you today and speak to you about NUVIEW and what we're building. I think it's a pretty special system and something very unique in the world that we've put together. And this program with 3D was very much inspirational in what we were designing in our system and how we're going to continue to develop it into the future. So Jacob, if you could go ahead and move on to the next slide. So as we get into this slide, I'll give you a little bit of background on the system and why we decided to build it and how we decided to build it. I first learned of this program in 3DEP in 2010. I was working on a program up in Alaska with quite a few of the aerial partners up there, and they were working on IFSAR data and really building up one of the greatest elevation assets in the world. It was really exciting to see how they combined on some kind of a side project. I was working at Rapid Eye at the time, which was the first commercial small-sat constellation with electro-optical 5-band data, and we were combining that together with really great IFSAR elevation data to produce a very unique data set. And during that time, I really learned the value of a high-quality elevation foundation. And that really made it started to itch in the back of my mind about what could be done at a global scale. And quite a few years later, when I was doing some work across some SAR data, across electro-optical, thermal, hyperspectral, I kept hearing the same thing, that data accuracy was really the last frontier in Earth observation sets, and getting there to a really highly accurate digital elevation model with also a great posting and resolution was very much kind of the holy grail of where we needed to be. And I'd really fallen in love with aerial LiDAR data. The challenge with it was getting it to a scale that you could make a global data set out of it. And as we thought about where we could get this type of accuracy from, in all the decades that I've worked in Earth observation, it never occurred to me that no one had ever built a LiDAR system to operate from space. And it immediately started making me ask the question of why. And once we got through all the physics challenges and the engineering challenges to get to where we are today, we realized as well that 90% of the planet doesn't have this high quality, scalable geospatial data set, high accuracy data set. And so to shorten the story, we decided to build this system and pulled on some really amazing engineers that had worked in the world of LiDAR for quite a long time. Great aerospace engineers that had built other systems for Earth observation, including optical and SAR. And the former chief of the Air Force Research Lab and the sensors directed to design a system that could work from space, get us the returns that we're looking for, and make sure the link budget closes to get the data that we needed. And so we're building from that inspiration the world's first constellation of LiDAR mappers from space to give us a global data set that's foundational anywhere on the planet. During all of the career in Earth observation, we also saw that most Earth observation companies, if not every one of them, had forgotten to build the delivery and distribution mechanism until it was too late, and they had already started building their satellites. And it made it really difficult, and still makes it difficult today, to get Earth observation data. So we decided in parallel to build our platform to deliver this data and make it accessible and bring it together with other data sets and data fusion all at the same time, so that when this data set comes to market, it comes ready to deliver and easily accessible. And through this work, we were awarded the Geospatial Innovator of the Year award in 2024, and Time Magazine's Best Inventions of 2023. And so we think we've built something pretty special and continue to build something special. Jacob? And the way that we look at our data set is that Earth observation data has been dominated by optical, it's been dominated by SAR, thermal and hyperspectral are just really another version of optical. And LiDAR is really that third pillar of Earth observation to give us the accuracy that when you start to do the orthorectification process of different optical and SAR data sets, you can start to bring together an accuracy to global scale that's just unprecedented. And our LiDAR data sets will be a standalone capability, as well as something that's designed to work well with SAR and work well with optical, to give us truly unique digital elevation models in the form of terrain and surface models, because of the unique way that LiDAR can collect both at night and in some cases with the right intensity and with the right power and the right revisit rate, foliage penetration. Next. So when we think about, again, the revisit of why we came to this conclusion, the 3DEP program stands alone in the world. And it's something that other countries have modeled. And every country out there that has an elevation program really looks to USGS as its mentor and guidepost in what to build and how to build it. And so it was an inspiration to us of a truly global data set that could be adopted in the same way that a national data set has been adopted in the US. And I also can't say enough about the 3-depth study that was completed by NOAA and USGS and compiled and conducted by Dewberry. When we first started looking at this idea, that report had just come out, and it really gave us what we needed to be able to go out to the market and prove the use case for a global LiDAR data set and the benefits, which are today determined to be about 10 to 1 on investment, that really make this a valuable contribution to the geospatial world. We work with and will continue to work with users at the federal, state, and local governments and private industry level, and to make these data sets widely available. And our geospatial platform is built for data accessibility and to be integrated with USGS Entwine projects, Sentinel from the European Space Agency, Landsat, NATE. We have all those data sets coming in because I honestly don't believe that any one geospatial data set is the silver bullet, but when you put them all together, you get something pretty magical and get to a holy grail type data set. Next. And so that leads me to one exciting thing that I wanted to bring out there, and then I'll turn it over to our chief engineer, Christian Damker. All of this caught the attention of some pretty valuable partners that we have in Europe as well. The European Space Agency put out an open call for lunar missions, and taking this capability to the moon gave us an unprecedented capability of being able to image the moon, get a very high quality data set before all of these countries who are working together start to inhabit the moon, put up infrastructure. We can get a baseline like we were never able to get here on Earth. And so we're really excited about this mission. We are early on into it. We're about to complete the first phase and start to move on to the next phase. So I will turn it over to Christian Damker to talk a little bit about that. Again, he's our chief engineer, and then he'll be happy to talk about the system before turning it over to Jacob again.
All right, thank you, Clint. And yeah, I'll talk just a little bit more about Moonraker here. So as Clint said, we're just wrapping up the pre-phase A for Moonraker. So early phase study, we're looking at responding to the open call for doing mapping of potential lunar landing sites for the Artemis programs, as well as a whole host of other science missions around the moon. So several of you are probably aware of the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and its LiDAR altimeter that has been imaging the moon for quite some time. It's produced a wonderful elevation surface for the moon that'll act as a baseline for us. And really what we're looking to do is to take that elevation surface to the next level to help to de-risk the landing sites. There's quite a bit of rocky terrain and large boulders within the lunar South Pole region that is home to the primary candidate landing sites that have the potential to be landing hazards for manned and unmanned missions headed to the region. So really excited to continue to press forward on that. We did have the opportunity to speak with GeoWeek News recently, and as of yesterday, they published an article on our program that we're working on right now. So do feel free to take a look at that if you have any interest on lunar remote sensing. We would love to talk to you some more about that. But turning back to the Earth observation, Jacob, why don't we go to the next slide? So for Earth observation, we're really looking, like Clint said, at building a constellation of LiDAR satellites. The first of which we affectionately call Mr. Spock for being our space proof of concept. So Mr. Spock is our pathfinder and be our initial operational capability for doing really terrain mapping from low Earth orbit. So there have been several successful science missions that have flown doing LiDAR altimetry. We've had the way paid for us through successful missions like JEDI, like ISAT and ISAT-2. And so really what we're looking to do is to press beyond the LiDAR profile altimetry into doing true area-based terrain mapping with LiDAR. And so Mr. Spock is going to be our first foray into doing that. And testing with Mr. Spock will allow us to validate all of our physics models, validate our concepts of operation, learn more about our LiDAR system, and will allow us to provide select customers with LiDAR elevation data. And as Jordan mentioned much earlier, the point clouds are just the start of the process. So we'll be looking at generating the LiDAR point clouds from Mr. Spock, as well as starting to prove out the generation of our derivative products, including our elevation models. That'll be the foundation of the product offerings that we make going forward. So the main characteristics of Mr. Spock, it's a free-flying satellite. It will have a small satellite form factor, a relatively large receive aperture. So the larger the receive aperture is, the better we can resolve features and the better our light gathering ability is. Being a technical demonstrator primarily, it does have a relatively short design life. So we're focusing on achieving a 3-year design life for Mr. Spock. And then again, operating within the low orbit, Earth orbit range. And Mr. Spock will allow us to do some testing on finding where the sweet spot is for flying to hit the trade between resolution and station keeping, and some other balances on optimizing our system for the future constellation designs. As we move beyond Mr. Spock, the future constellation satellites will then evolve to support greater area coverage and longer design life to help us build up towards that eventual global mapping mission. So, Jacob, if you can, let's move to the next slide. So really the LiDAR acquisition is just the start of the data acquisition piece for us. So our LiDAR will always be running a foundation mapping mission. We will also have the opportunity to task satellites for specific collects, and that capability will grow as we get more of the satellites online as we launch the full constellation. As the data is collected, it will be sent down to through our ground stations into our core processing system, where we will be doing the foundation product generation. The NUVIEW core, even though we're showing the arrows moving from left to right here, will actually be kind of the gateway back up to the satellite as well. So I said for doing tasking of collections and balancing tasking with our foundation mission, all of that will be managed through the core processing system, sending telecommands up to the satellite and receiving telemetry back. Once we have the data back through the core processing system, we'll generate the LiDAR point clouds. We'll do baseline classification on the point clouds, generate our derivative products, including elevation models and intensity imagery, and then complete quality assessment and asset management, and feed it forward through our dissemination portal. And that brings us to the NUVIEW platform. The NUVIEW platform is really the face of NUVIEW to our end customers, where we already have the capability for doing multi-source geospatial data discovery, and the LiDAR layer will become an additional layer within that. We have other services that are built to help to exploit that data for several purposes, including AI/ML. and doing that on really a global scale, and enabling rapid data visualization of point cloud data, elevation data, and raster data as well as vector. And with that, I will hand it over to Jacob to give a deeper dive into the platform.
Thanks, Christian. And thanks everybody for being here. Really happy to be presenting in front of the NSGIC crowd and everybody else that could join. So yeah, jumping into the platform here. So this is, like Christian said, is the customer facing side of NUVIEW. So this is where customers interact. They'll order, task for data. So when we're talking about acquiring data and point clouds and derivative products, we'll have tasking for those specific LiDAR areas. So when you have targeted AOIs, what we're looking at here is our platform. You can task for future acquisitions. So say you wanted to monitor a specific AOI every Thursday for the next 6 years along a coastal zone. You'd have the ability to do that and open up those doors for frequent revisits of targeted areas. As we also have the passive acquisitions, this is what we're really diving into on this screenshot. So you can draw your specific AOI, and based on our product list, you'll be able to filter through and then add those specific products that you're interested in into your cart there on the right. So then you can see we have selected 3 specific products that we want to add to this specific AOI. Make sure that the customer, for example, would have the entire coverage area focused on the products that they're targeted. And then they can filter those based on, temporal or resolution. And then essentially that would clip and ship it, and you can order that specific data set that you're interested in. You can do all that right there in about 60 seconds. So this is really where you start to dive into getting your hands on the data and doing it quickly. Jumping on to the next side of things on our platform is more the data accessibility and discoverability, like Clint was mentioning earlier on in the presentation. Since there is no, as he said, silver bullet for one data set, we actually compile all of those open source data sets into our platform. For example, we're looking at the USGS entwine files that I know Hobu worked on with them. So we can draw a specific AOI over the United States, and we can start to look at all of the entwine projects for coverages that the 3DEP program has. It's really easy, simple to do. And you can see there on the top right as the order data button to actually, dive in and purchase different types of data sets. Here's the list that Clint was mentioning of the open source data sets in the NUVIEW platform. So we have USGS's entwine point cloud files. We have their bare earth models, Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2. So when you're specifically looking at, say, Sentinel-2, that's over 60 petabytes of data that we have indexed into the platform. 10-meter resolution imagery updated weekly. You can go in, draw your specific AOIs like we have in the little screenshot here for Landsat 8. You can filter through cloud coverage, date from, date to, really start to narrow in your focus based on your specific use case. Same thing works with LiDAR or SAR data sets. As long as they have acquisition dates and are geospatially referenced, we can bring them into the platform. Yep, that's about it on the open source. Jumping into actually how we index these is something called STAC. So that is Spatio-Temporal Asset Catalog. So that is a open standard for indexing and organizing all of the geospatial data sets that we do behind the scenes. It really helps with the search and access and streaming of those geospatial data sets. Really, essentially how it works is the items, catalogs, and collections and driven search functions. So if we dive into each of those when we're looking at a stack item, it's really based on the metadata within each file. So when you're looking at imagery or LiDAR or raster files, diving into the actual metadata components of those files themselves. Then we build out the catalogs and collections. So then how we're actually organizing all of those different types of data sets based on the metadata, right? So are we looking at the sources, the data, and locations of those actual files themselves? And then they're API driven for search functions. So as we look at the catalog, we can actually narrow down how we want to search for those specific data sets. Now, when we're actually diving into the platform, when we, for example, looking at NAPE imagery here, you can draw your AOI, you get your thumbnail on the right, and you just click the thumbnail, and you can quickly load that NAPE image right there on the map. There's also a quick change detection for visual comparison. So if you wanted to do, for example, USGS point cloud and a NAPE image, you can put those side by side, filter the points how you want, and then you can do a change analysis right there on the fly. If you're just looking to see what type of NAPE imagery is over the state of Washington, over what dates. So say we wanted to draw a search area over the state of Washington. Here we get the entire USDA NAPE image tiles all over the state of Washington. And you can look on the bottom to see the actual acquisition dates by scenes, right? So with us utilizing the with Stack, we're actually looking at the acquisition dates there on the bottom of every tile within this AOI. So then you can start to filter in to see how many results you have in a dated time over a given area. And then within those search functions and criterias, you can then begin to download and stream those data sets that you're focused on. So when we look at a download of a specific asset. So when I say asset, we're looking at, say, one tile, right? We're looking at one tile of a cloud optimized GeoTIFF, which is what we operate with. And we can actually narrow in the specific metadata components within that image tile. So you want to look at the visualizations of the RGB, you can just select that and it would give you just that approximate bundle size, right? If you needed all the components to the actual metadata of that single image tile, then you can select them all. It would compile your full bundle size of that scene, and then that is downloadable. So you can actually narrow in specifically what you need within each image tile to narrow down your approach and bundle size, which really comes into handy with something like Sentinel, where there's many beams and they are larger in size. So when you're working with a bunch of different types of data sets. When we're looking at streaming, this is an example that I pulled in from the Esri XYZ tile layer that's automatically generated on a scene-by-scene basis. So then you can just stream that into your ArcPro or ArcGIS Online software that you're working with. So you wouldn't even have to download that specific image that you're looking at. We also work with ingesting data as well. So we've been working with the state of Alaska to ingest their data sets as well to see what that looks like within our platform. And what we are able to do are the same types of search functions that we filter on with the Stack component of the backend. But then we can actually tie that into looking at, say, for example, the Alaska data sets, but then also bringing in the USGS data sets for visual comparisons between the two. So we're looking at coverage areas. Here we have filtered, say, the Alaska point cloud data and USGS 3-depth data. We can draw a search area and see all of the returned results based on those two criterias. We can go to the next page and say, here are going back here just really briefly. So there's 4 entwined project files all within this specific location. And then we can mosaic all of those together on the fly for visual inspection and for coverage areas. That still also gives us the project dates. So there on the bottom, you can see early November, probably within December. you're looking at 3 different project areas coverage within these entwined files. Jumping on to the next one, working with something like the Copic, so cloud optimized point clouds of LAZ, so dual compressed, working at the visual inspections of the actual point clouds for the state of Alaska. So now we're actually looking at tiles. We can bring those together and mosaic those all together for visual inspection. And you can click the thumbnail, you can pan around in 3D. And if you notice, as I'm kind of bouncing through these, we actually build this on top of a base map, right? So all of the point clouds that we're bringing in and visualizing actually have visual representation on a map. So I do think that's very cool and unique. And jumping to the next one and just looking at some of the mosaic of point clouds and point filterings that we're able to do. And this is the state of Illinois that I use in a lot of my demos. And this is fully classified LiDAR, and just really shows the vegetation and pop out, and in the mosaic view with multiple projects loaded in. A new development that we brought into the platform is iDome lighting. So this is EDL. So this is really what makes the point clouds pop when you're looking at a classification filter such as elevation in this visual inspection. So when we jump to the next slide, you can see the difference between turning and toggling iDome lighting on and off for visual inspection to see what you can actually get out of the point clouds. So there on the top image is without iDome lighting, and there on the bottom is enhancing that iDome lighting, toggling it on for visual representation of the point cloud. This is again just kind of jumping into the mosaic feature of the point cloud tiles and visually inspecting them, but then also downloading. So this is a new feature that we've also incorporated. So now you don't have to go in and download a single tile at a time. We're really trying to build out the ease of use for end users. So now you can go in, you're visually inspecting and say, oh, I do need this data. Now you can actually just click the download button. And what that will do is actually download all of the tiles that you have mosaic together in this view. So this works with image files, any cloud optimized geotiff that we have in the platform, raster products, and the point clouds as well. And then the change comparison, kind of like I touched base on a little bit earlier, of comparing a digital elevation model and a point cloud for different visualizations. So say you wanted to look at above ground features for what's in the point cloud, but then also what's under, you can do the comparison just right there. And then here's just some more little fancy screenshots that I liked. Intensity. And then filtering the colorization of the point cloud just looks nice in the platform. And I believe I jumped through those, and that is it.
Right on. Thank you, Clint, Jacob, and Christian. I really appreciate you guys diving into NUVIEW's capacity and planned capacity, the existing platform capabilities, and how USGS 3DEP was instrumental to really putting you guys on the path that you're on. We had a couple of questions in the chat. Clint, thanks for hopping on the question regarding the points per square meter. And if anyone else has any questions for Clint, Jacob, or Christian, that would be a great opportunity. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll go through them one at a time.
Jordan, I'll go ahead and answer here too on the points per square meter so that everyone sees it. I know sometimes these get missed in the chat, but the question was, how many points per square meter will you be collecting? And that's an answer with a few facets. We've designed the system with one and multiple satellites to be always on to collect at the quality level 2 standard, which is 2 points per meter, and the 10 centimeter vertical accuracy. As we develop more satellites, and we have more data on the ground, the accuracy will improve. And once we get to full deployment of 20 satellites, we'll be able to do revisits between 50 degrees north and 50 degrees south 4 times per day, or every 6 hours. North of 40 and, or sorry, north of 50 and south of 50 south, it'll be about every 12 hours for a revisit. And we'll be able to achieve a much higher point density by multiple revisits, or what's equivalent to staring spotlight mode in, or dwelling mode in SAR. So if someone ordered, for example, 50 points per square meter, we likely could not collect that on a single pass, but with multiple revisits, we would build up that temporal diversification of points, but over the same period in as short of a time as possible, to be able to give a very high point density and improve the accuracy. So it's not an easy, straightforward answer, but I think that describes how we've developed the system.
Awesome. Thank you, Clint. Kind of to tag on to that a little bit, I'm really curious about how or if you are using the LiDAR base spec that has been foundational to the 3DEP program in your specifications. Are you using it to kind of guide your specifications, or and then as
Sure.
a subsequent question, are you using existing 3DEP data to validate the accuracy, or do you plan to use 3DEP data to validate the accuracy of your returns?
Jordan, I heard almost the entire question, but missed the very last part.
So the first part was at the base spec, and then the second part is, do you plan on using existing 3DEP data to validate accuracy of your returns?
So yeah, those are wonderful questions. When we talk about the base spec for the data, we've decided that, I watched a lot of the SAR companies come online over time, and they all tried to do things their own way and teach the world how they do business. We actually approached it from the exact opposite direction. We started with the USGS, which is the gold standard worldwide on how to do this, and we've built our specs for our satellites there. So we started with the answer that everyone already understands and worked backwards to get to the sensor. So 100%, that is our guiding North Star in how we build things. The second part of the question, do we plan on using that for validation? Absolutely. We will continue, we have and will continue to use 3DEP data as the gold standard for everything that we do. And we want to make everything better if possible. But that's one of the largest data sets of high quality LiDAR data in the world. And it wouldn't make sense not to use that where possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Clint. Got kind of I love Keith just hopping out there with this one. What could users and customers expect with regard to pricing? Keith is asking specifically for 8 points per square meter per acre.
Yeah, sounds like when we're talking per acre, sounds like an agricultural background. Happy to jump into that one. Agriculture, I think it was Keith that asked that question. I grew up in agriculture and spent the last almost 17 years working in big and local ag. And one thing that I can tell you, Keith, is that ag is a different beast altogether. You can't treat ag like defense. You can't treat it like forestry. You can't treat it like wide scale mapping. It's going to be its own thing. And it always has to work as its own thing. And so what I can tell you is that as our point on the horizon that we're shooting for is to drop the cost of LiDAR acquisition by about half of what you would get it from aerial. But that means, though, that aerial will always, and UAV will always play a very vital role in our partnerships, because we'll never match the fidelity of a UAV that does 1 square mile, or an aircraft that does 10 square miles, or 100 square miles. But what we will match is the wide scale acquisition to make sure there's always something fresh available. So we're hoping to bring down the cost of always on LiDAR data to about half of what it is today. But we'll always be collaborating and partnering and working with the aerial and UAV guys as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Clint. And Keith is following up with any examples with data that you can share from maybe your experiments or the work that you guys are doing in the lab.
So Christian's team, Christian has a very deep and storied background in LiDAR data from aerial acquisition, as well as modeling and simulation. We're kind of doing that ad hoc at the moment on what we're producing for very specific customer requests, but we don't have it available at scale from the lab at the moment. We do have lab data from our sensor that we've built. We do have range data from the sensor that we've built, and we have a system that will be announced in the not so distant future, specifically for test data. It is not Mr. Spock, it's a different system, but that's still pretty tightly under wraps until we actually release it. Christian, if you'd like to add to there, be happy to let you chime in there. I don't know how much more you want to add in there though.
Yeah, no, thanks, Clint. And you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. We do have laboratory data, but it's not mapping data, right? So we're working on doing ranging data with the system at this time, but it's not representative of the remote sensing mapping data that I think you're probably looking for, Keith. The best representation of what we're targeting for the mapping data really is 3-depth data. So foundational 3-depth data is probably the best representative of what we are looking to achieve. As far as simulated data, like Clint said, simulated data takes a lot to make a computer do what Mother Nature does naturally. So it's pretty expensive to generate. We don't have a lot of that data readily available to share at this time, but we're looking forward to pressing forward with the actual test systems and having test data available to share in the future.
Yeah, we'll have with our system that I was hinting at a little bit, we'll have a few select partners, both government and commercial, that have access to that data early. But we're really looking forward to bringing that to the world.
Thank you, Clint and Christian. Does anyone else have questions for Clint, Christian, or Jacob? All right, awesome. I always like to wrap things up with asking, how would what you're doing be possible without USGS 3-depth? Where would you guys be? What would be the hurdles you'd have to get across? Would it be possible without USGS 3-depth?
Sounds like you put that one on the tee for us there. Yeah, it's very easy, and I can say it with a straight face that without 3-depth, this idea never would have come about, at least for me anyway, because all of the work that I've done, electrical, optical, and SAR, and thermal and hyperspectral, all of that relies on high quality elevation data, and I never would have had the itch to scratch on high quality elevation data had it not been for a 3-depth program that had been well thought out, standards set. It really made that part of the discovery a lot more straightforward, because someone had already spent a ton of time figuring out what the users in the community need. And as you may or may not know, in the world of startups and starting a business, especially in Earth observation, most of the industry started with building a cool sensor and then trying to find the users that would use that data. And I wrote an article about this a while back. We did it the exact opposite of every Earth observation company. We started with what the users were using, which is 3-depth data, and we worked backwards to the sensor we needed to build. I think from that respect, it's easy to say we would not exist without the idea that spurred from working in the 3-depth program in some fashion.
Awesome. Thank you, Clint. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This has been an awesome insight into what NUVIEW is up to and how the USGS 3-depth program is really created a foundational data set and understanding of how LiDAR can be collected, distributed, and really leveraged into future technologies. So thank you guys. I'll be publishing this out to the NSGIC knowledge base early next week. So keep your eyes out for that if you want to share it or just review it for your notes. But really appreciate everyone hopping on, and keep your eyes open for that August 6th USGS 3D NTM FY26 informational webinar. Thanks a lot, everyone, and looking forward to seeing you next time.